All right, today we're looking at the Big Screen Beyond versus Pimax Crystal Post. Uh, Basically, there's been a whole bunch of arguments and discussions brought up recently. People aren't very happy about this marketing post that Pimax has released. And a lot of their criticism is taken a little bit out of context, I'd say. So today we're going to go over this and see what is correct, what's not correct, those kinds of things for this post. Most of the information is relatively correct, but obviously, with a marketing endeavor from any company, they're going to favor their results on their side than others. You can see it in any type of large company uh, marketing practice effort, like Apple saying 30% but faster or something like that, but they're not giving the relative of what it was they were testing or some crap. Anyway, so we will start where something is a little bit controversial. Um, Pimax Crystal is a no compromise high feature headset implementing the best hardware to the VR industry has to offer. The Big Screen Beyond is compromising, choosing function over form, or form over function, sorry, sacrificing features and functionality to achieve its form factor. We'll go further into details below, but we can say both these methods work. They're just different. Now that's all you really need to take from this. Is these are two different completely like products. The Beyond strips everything away to be the smallest form factor and the lightest possible, while the Crystal is a large form factor headset and has as much features as they could possibly cram into it. Unfortunately, the size is a little bit larger than it needs to be because Pimax wants to share its accessories between the 12K and the Crystal instead of making customized like molding and versions of it for the Crystal specifically. So it shares the exact same housing and design as the 12K. So it's a little bit larger than it needs to be because the headset's designed to handle 5.5-inch displays, where the Crystal only uses 3.2-inch displays. It's a downside to the Crystal, I guess, having a larger headset than what it needs to be, but it was a requirement if they wanted to get all the accessories to be compatible between both the models. And it just makes sense from a manufacturing cost perspective. So we got pricing. The Crystal cost $1,600. I'm not sure if this is including any kinds of VAT or anything on it. And the Beyond will cost $1,680 for a similar functioning setup. Yes, as you can see, here's the price listed out, but this would only be based off of US pricing. The rest of the world has the Beyond at a higher price point than $1,000, for example. And so, either way, this might be without VAT. This might be including VAT, but then this is only for the US pricing, and the rest of the world has to pay way more than this. I think in Europe it's like 1,300 or 1,200 for the big screen. But anyway, this makes the Crystal more affordable. At this price point, pricing doesn't matter in the first place unless you're spending more to get a worse product. If they're both similar class products and they just do different features, then that's fine. That's what you're paying for. Not to mention that the $280 for like Valve Index controllers that has finger tracking, the Crystal controllers have finger tracking that is not yet enabled, but they will be enabled down the track. The Crystal's not a ready product. Wait 6 months till all the features, accessories come out, and then be a lot appealing to purchase. The displays uses dual QLED panels, resolution of 5760 by 2880. So that's combining both panels per eye to get that result. So we have the Beyond uses micro OLED 5160 by 2160. This is a SEER panel. Pimax uses a BOE panel. Yep. The QLED panels from the crystals calculated DCI-P coverage of 104. This is correct. If you look at the datasheet for this panel that the crystal uses, it's 100% NTSC, so that is correct. Comparatively, the big screen beyond's OLED or micro OLED panel is reported between 80 and 90% of DCI-P3 coverage. If you look at the datasheet, it says 85%. So they had a range here for 80 to 90, so more of an estimate, but the datasheet says it's 85. I don't know if there is fluctuations in panel uniformity with colors or something like that, but this is completely correct. Means less color range. Yes, but even though the crystal might have a higher color range than the Beyond, what it doesn't have is the contrast ratio of per pixel dimming. The per pixel dimming on the big screen Beyond will make the contrast ratio just look a lot better, and probably things might pop better because of the rich blacks paired with the colors. But at the same time, the Beyond doesn't have that high of a brightness. So anyway, both panels, 5,000 mini LEDs. Is that correct? I forgot if it was... Yeah, I think it's 576 dimming zones per display on the crystal. If I'm remembering that correctly, that's how many dimming zones there are. Anyway, the crystal also has a refresh rate of 120 Hz and higher speeds coming, while the maximum, the Beyond, is capable of 90 Hz. Now, this 90 Hz, I'll talk about this later on. This is a quote unquote, it does hit 90 Hz, but there are sacrifices to doing it, where 120 Hz on the crystal doesn't have any sacrifices. The higher refresh rates coming, though, will have sacrifices. Anyway, as you can see, the crystal has superior displays, producing more vibrant colors while being smoother and remaining competitive with OLED blacks. Yeah, it's competitive. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better, but for a Pimax headset where you need to have large displays for the field of view that they're trying to cover, it's fine. The thing is, the crystal uses pretty small panels, being 3.2 inch instead of typical Pimax panels, which are like 5.5. So it's kind of a downside for the crystal, but they make the most out of it with what we're moving on to is the lenses. So the Pimax crystal uses the world's first glassospheric lenses. Not sure if that's correct. Maybe it is on a consumer product, but I don't know if any enterprise headsets use entirely glassospheric lenses. I'm imagining there would be some company like Xtile that uses glassospheric lenses, but most VR lenses are not entirely made of glass, and Pimax has gone and done that for the crystal. Glass is typically thicker than plastic lenses, which can affect the overall size, weight of the headset. Yep, the lenses are double the weight than the plastic ones, but that is not that much of an issue because you're only adding like about 80 grams, 100 grams or something. It's not that bad when you factor in how balanced the crystal is and already how heavy it is, but it's supposedly comfortable. Anyway, and ensuring the perfect optical clarity to provide users with the best viewing experience, the big screen Beyond uses triple element plastic pancake lens design. Yeah, so this will be some kind of optical grade plastic, I'm going to say. I'm not going to say I know more than that, but yeah, they're going to be using some kind. They need it for the lightweight and the small form factor. This causes significant light loss to the display, yeah, and introducing glare to the image. You're going to get that with pancake optics. They might be better than Fresnel lenses at pretty much everything, but you're going to have a glare issue, I think. I don't think you can really work around that because of how light is folding in the lens stack. I mean, there's probably good ways of using coatings over lenses to mitigate that. But anyway, yeah, users of the crystal will have a maximum of 200 nits. Now, this might be what the maximum of the display can deliver, but I can tell you that to the eye, this is probably not correct. I'd say the brightness is probably closer to about 160, 170 nits. But to be honest, I don't think that's really a major difference or factor. It's already a ridiculously bright display compared to all the VR displays we've had recent times. So not fully like HDR capable if you're wanting full HDR spec when you've got like 500 nit peak brightness or anything, but it can sustain the high brightness constantly instead of having a small area of the screen at peak values. Anyway, brightness through the lens. Due to the lens design, the big screen beyond, it will reportedly have between 50 and 70 nits. Yeah, it probably will come out at about a 70 nits brightness VR headset. I think it's dim, but people are going to have to deal with it. There might be smear at this brightness. Basically, the pixel response time's not keeping up because of the what's it called again? There's a word for it. I always forget words. Not black frame insertion. 10% window. Crap, I've lost it. Oh well. You just lose a shit ton of light from the lens stack and running the display less than peak values for faster pixel response times on the Beyond. The crystal provides significantly brighter experience to the user paired with local dimming zones and amazing features. Yeah, just marketing crap at this stage. Doesn't really matter, that information. The crystal also uses unique interchangeable lens system, allowing various different sharpness and FOV, which will be discussed later. The crystal has default lenses of 35 pixels per degree with a large sweet spot. The sweet spot's different. I would agree it's the large sweet spot, but you get distortion out of the sweet spot. See, the properties of Pimax's crystal lenses are amazing in like optical clarity, but when you're out of the sweet spot, you get a lot of distortion and stuff. I think once we get the auto IPD adjustment update for the crystal, then this would not be a major factor to an argument to say that the sweet spot's bad or something. The Beyond achieves 32 ppd, supposedly. That's what their recent announcement said. I don't know how originally it was 28 and now it's 32, unless they changed how they calculate it or how they magnify the display, making higher utilization of the center of the image on the Beyond, giving them better pixels per degree. But this is fine. This is what they're claiming. It's not out yet, so we'll see if that's true. I'm pretty sure it will be true. Provides crystal owners with sharper viewing experience and clearer text with more detail. Definitely. What's more, the FOV of the crystal is slightly larger than the Beyond, even with the default 35 ppd lenses. Yeah, it's basically the same. I like if we're like really caring about the last like 2 degrees FOV between VR headsets, they're the same. From that point, you just go which has the larger edge-to-edge clarity, and the crystal has the win on that. Even if they had identical FOV value. The crystal is feature-packed with technology that you wouldn't find on the Beyond, such as a standalone mode and inside-out tracking provided by Qualcomm XR2. The crystal works right out of the box, comes with built-in wireless capabilities. Yep. Crystal comes packed with Tobii eye tracking to provide features such as dynamic foveated rendering to improve the performance to 10 to 40% gains. This performance improvement is equivalent to a generational leap in GPU performance. That is correct. Essentially, you could run a lower tier GPU with dynamic foveated rendering. So you could basically run a crystal on last gen hardware. So if you have a 30 series generation, like a 3070 if you don't run out of VRAM, yeah, you could probably run the Crystal pretty decently at 90 Hz. Anyway, moving on. Eye tracking allows you to express yourself in social VR applications. Auto IPD automatically adjusts the lenses. So the automatic IPD is not out yet. I think the beta testers have this, but this should be coming later. I think they're having issues with it at the moment. Whereas the beyond IPD adjustment cannot even be adjusted, limiting who can use the headset after purchase. So the beyond is made for a specific individual. You can't adjust the IPD without completely tearing the headset down and changing the IPD yourself. Where the Crystal has motorized IPD adjustment, which means you can actually share the headset around, anything like that. Resale value might be stronger on the Crystal or something like that. Not that that's financial advice, but I mean, like, it's got automatic IPD adjustment. You're not going to be locked into a certain IPD value. Now, actually talking about the eye tracking though, the Crystal has the best eye tracking on a VR headset once the SDK becomes available to the public. It's got the latest specs, or the latest specification of Tobii eye tracking. So a lot of people in the eye tracking type community for social VR applications, the Vive Pro Eye is the best headset. There's not been one headset yet that's come and beaten all the eye tracking features that the Vive Pro Eye has, even though it's old and essentially discontinued now. So people are buying Vive Pro Eyes really expensive secondhand for them because they're the best at eye tracking. And the Crystal should match, and if not, actually beat the eye tracking in the Vive Pro Eye. Crystal can run its eye tracking at 120 Hz. The Vive Pro Eye only does 90 Hz, if I remember correctly. And it's just the latest feature set from Tobii. So anyway, that's something that I'm really looking forward to in the future with the 12K as well, because they all share the same platform. Anyway, high quality Tectonic off-ear BMR speakers, DTS sound, immersive audio. The big screen does not come with any audio solution out of the box. This is annoying. They didn't even put a 3.5mm jack on it. They have a USB-C 2.0 port that you're then supposed to connect your audio to, which is really frustrating that they didn't include any like 3.5mm adapter on it when they don't even include audio on the base configuration of the headset, especially for $1,000 plus. It's kind of a bit shocking, where you could get something like a Valve Index headset only, obviously comparison, which costs $500 and has the best audio on it. The Crystal has pretty good audio. The BMR drives, it's Valve Index quality. The microphone, the DMAS audio on it. They've now got a good DSP running on the Pimax headset. It's great audio. You could not really complain going from a Valve Index to a Crystal until they release some updates. They're working on updates for the audio solution. They've got different versions of the BMR like audio update that has different features, like really high quality, high latency latency, low quality. Like they're still working on it. Essentially, it's not a ready product. That's it. Come back 6 months later once the Crystal's ready. Anyway, the availability is right now. So if you wanted to go and be a beta tester for Pimax, which I definitely would sign myself up. I've been Pimax user for many, many years. And I know what to expect, and I don't really like recommending Pimax to people, but I feel like this will be a great product once it's ready, once all the features are out, and it's just a ready product overall. But yeah, Crystal, available right now if you want to be a beta tester. With the Beyond, requires full payment. This is a matter of preference. The Beyond's not out yet, But by the time the Beyond is out, the Crystal should be more of a ready product for consumer use. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt. It's available right now, the Crystal, but it's in a functional state. It just doesn't have its accessories and stuff, and just wait until people aren't having weird issues with just software updates. Anyway, starting here, we're finally at the comparison table, which I feel is the table that is annoying people, I guess. It's causing the most controversial things about this article. So let's start from the top and work our way down. So the price, $1,600, I've already discussed. This is, if you don't already have the setup, you know, the headset's $1,000. But that's not including the audio, and then once you buy the $100 audio strap, it's $1,200. And then, you know, depending on the country, if you're in the US or elsewide, you know, the price is different. It's even more expensive. Both these headsets are basically at the same price point. I would not say either of them are necessarily better than the other. But yeah, the Crystal will end up being more expensive either way. No matter how they phrase this, it will be more expensive. But at least you get your inside-out tracked finger tracking controllers eventually. And hopefully the standalone quality will be improved. Anyway, FOV, bigger than Beyond. So Pimax has bigger lenses in the works that they could use for this. So Pimax was claiming 125 horizontal, 140 diagonal. They're working on lenses that hopefully will achieve those numbers. I'm going to say, worst case scenario, they only achieve 117 degrees horizontal. It's still a bigger uplift than this. But without the bigger FOV lenses, these FOV numbers between the 35 ppd lens and the stock Beyond should be about the same. Hopefully this number is correct from Beyond. Obviously the product's not out yet, where the Crystal is. But same FOV, bigger sweet spot, better materials on the Crystal, like the glass and stuff. You're going to get a better overall experience on the Crystal when it comes to FOV. Weight. So these companies, it's standard practice for companies to strip things off their headset to measure the weight. So it would be normal for companies to remove the facial interface, the head strap, any unnecessary things to measure just the actual HMD quality, not quality, weight. And so that's what this is. This is stripped out facial interface, no head strap, no audio solution, no nothing, no cable plugged in, and it's 127 grams. You do the same thing to the Pimax Crystal and you get 960 grams. So big weight difference, but you know, it's a different type of product. Maximum like small form factor, lightweight, maximum features, but you got to sacrifice some form factor for it. Panels, 85%, 100% NTSC, also 104% DCPI3, so 104 to 85. As I said before, contrast doesn't matter. Like this is going to have a better per pixel dimming, so you're going to have like better contrast ratio, but then this one is going to be better in your color values. Resolution, 2880 by 2880, 2560 by 2560. Now refresh rate. Now this is a bit controversial. I've heard that this 160 number is not supposed to be on the chart. As it said back up here, it said 120 hertz with higher speeds coming, while the maximum, the Beyond, is capable of 90. So this should have been 120 hertz. 120 hertz works right now. And no matter what anyone says, that 120 hertz doesn't work on the Crystal, they're lying, because it does work. It depends on your configuration. So people that have 3090 Ti's have issues with DisplayPort signaling and stuff like that. So 120 hertz isn't working on 3090 Ti's. And people are also having issues with the fiber optic cable, which Pimax was shipping out to people because the Crystal cable is not ready or is not in high enough production yet. So people were receiving 6-meter fiber optic cables that are unstable at 120 hertz. So some people do get 120 hertz fiber optic cable on the crystal, but others are getting it reported that it's 120 hertz, but is actually running in like a fallback mode where it's like, oh, it was unstable. I put myself to 90 hertz and I think I'm still running at 120. So it is 120 hertz capable. And that is with native resolution with display stream compression, which is visually lossless. Where the Beyond is on a different spectrum. This only has 90 hertz max. And this maximum is with upscaling. So 1920 by 1920 per eye, maybe with DSC on top of that. I'm not sure. They keep on saying that the Beyond is using DSC. So they might be using upscaling plus DSC. But even though it's 2560 by 2560 image, to achieve 90 hertz, it's 1920 by 1920. So you're going back to Quest 2 render res, but with a native DisplayPort connection. Where if you were to take the Crystal's maximum experimental 160 hertz feature, which is coming out later, this is what they're testing in their labs. This should be achievable with foveated transport on. So either way, if you want to show off your 90 hertz max feature, you're going to find that Pimax is also going to show off their maximum, which is not available yet. And this relates to what's further down here where it says PC VR engine, full DisplayPort bandwidth support. This is referring to Pimax being able to do 120 hertz and use the full bandwidth of DisplayPort, where they have the Beyond here saying compressed limited, which is referring to the fact that they're using upscaling. They're upscaling a 1920 by 1920 image because there's not enough bandwidth for them, because they're not using all of the DisplayPort 1.4 spec with DSC applied on top of it. And it's because they're using a USB-C connection with sending USB data to it, and probably to do with their display drivers and stuff like that. Essentially, they're restricted to their 1920 by 1920, whether they're using DSC or not. But I have the gigabit bandwidth up here. So we have 5120 by 2560 at 75 hertz would be 25 gigabit. That's how much it's using when it runs at its lower 75 hertz refresh rate. And then we have when it's running at its upscaled mode, which it does when you run it at 90 hertz with quote-unquote DSC, it's running 17 gigabit at 90 hertz, and that's without actually applying display stream compression. Once you apply display stream compression, it's 8.48, so 8.5 gigabit. But I don't actually know if they're using DSC or if they're claiming that upscaling is DSC. I'm not sure. Whatever it is, they're not even displaying the full resolution, where Pimax will display you the full resolution at up to 120 hertz, and we'll see with foveated transport down the future with 160 hertz. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. Lens type, single piece glass, triple piece plastic. So pancake versus aspheric glass. This is fine. Technically, the Crystal has better lens, technically, but like they do this for form factor and stuff. That's why the big screen's so small. They need this. You'd want this for the small form factor. Anyway, glare, minimal to none. Yeah, essentially, you're going to get minimal glare on the lenses. You don't have the rings of Fresnel lenses or anything like that on the Crystal, because of it being aspheric and glass made, where you're going to get a lot of glare just because of pancake optics. Folding the light and stuff like that inside the lens is going to do that. The Valve Index uses double stacked Fresnel lenses, if I remember correctly, and that has a high amount of glare. So if you're coming from a Valve Index to a Beyond, you're going to get similar amounts of glare, I'd imagine. You're going to be used to it, is essentially what I'm saying, where people that aren't coming from a valve index that has normal glare amounts, crystals, nice. Approximate brightness, this might be what the display is actually capable of, but once you go through the lenses and whatever, it's probably 160, 170. And this is their high-end number. This is the Beyond's low-end number. They shouldn't have put 50 nits here. They should have put something like 70 nits, because this is taking their best value and comparing it to the Beyond's worst value, which is not fair, but at the same time, this is what happens in marketing. All companies will do shit like this. Anyway, modular, lighthouse, mixed reality, hand tracking, Airlink module coming. So basically trying to show off that the Crystal has way more features to offer than the Beyond, including eye tracking from Tobii. Full spec of that, and that's good. Dynamic foveated rendering for performance. Yep, so that's essentially what you're going to get. It's a very useful feature. It works really nice. Standalone, wireless, audio solution. Yeah, Big Screen hasn't shown off their audio solution yet, so we don't have any information to refer to that. Out of the box, you will get the BMR drivers from the Crystal, where you won't get that from the Beyond. But we just don't know anything about their audio solution, so X for that. Customizable software. This is a pro and a con at the same time, as this is both a pro and a con for the Beyond not having any external software. If you were to add eye tracking to the Beyond, for example, they would need to run external software. They couldn't just use SteamVR. And so, because it's so stripped down just to everything, it runs SteamVR only and it's perfectly fine. And the only customizability you have is really switching it between its 75 Hz mode and its 90 Hz mode. Where Pimax, you have many different features to go through, like the dynamic foveated rendering, the different refresh rates that will be available, 144 Hz, 160 Hz, 120, 90, and I think they're going to add like a 60 or 72 Hz mode down the track for sim use, because sim people really like Pimax headsets, and it makes a lot of sense. No iPhone scan required. This is actually a major benefit. So many people, when the Big Screen Beyond came out, were claiming were annoyed, claiming they wouldn't buy it because they didn't have an iPhone or something like that. And not having to need that, that's definitely a pro. I see why not you wouldn't put it on a spec sheet comparing the two. Interchangeable lenses, like I said, you can choose for the large field of view lenses that are coming later on down the track, and obviously it comes stock with the 32 pixels per degree lens. And the plastic lenses that they were shipping out initially at launch, I think are completely done. I hope they're done. Where they were shipping out units, to move units out the door, they were shipping people temporary lenses so they could start using their Crystal before, instead of waiting around and not receiving their Crystal, just because glass manufacturing wasn't up to speed yet. But that should be all done, I think, now. So all the people should be receiving the people that receive plastic lenses should be receiving their glass lenses at the moment. And I don't think they're shipping plastics anymore. They've also fixed the crystals breaking and shipping. That's also fixed now. So all the units moving forward should have that fix. Anyway, fully automatic IPD adjustment coming later on. The Beyond just doesn't have any adjustment. You buy it, no adjustment, and then if you want to adjust it later on, you're going to have to tear the headset down and maybe get different IPD plates to move it and stuff. It's not a user-friendly experience. No base stations required, easy to set up with no failures. The no failures here is referring to the fact that base station 2.0s have a high failure rate, and I want to say it's more common than what you'd think. And so for some reason, it's on this list here that no failures when it comes to the base stations. High failure rate over here. Yeah, it's I don't see this as a point. This is just adding it for the sake of adding it. Anyway, no base stations required, obviously inside out tracked, easy to set up because you don't have to mount anything to walls or buy extra arms, what are they called? Camera mounts and stuff to put the base stations up everywhere. It's actually a pretty easy setup process, the Crystal. And obviously you're going to have the normal SteamVR setup process. You don't have any pass-through camera or anything like that on the Beyond, so it's going to be the normal old method we've had for years, ever since the original Vive came out for setup. So it's harder setup process, but really nothing to really knock it about. But it's just put in there anyway, I guess. Full bandwidth, as I said before, they use full bandwidth of it. There's no limitation. They're not lowering the resolution down, so they're running 2880 by 2880 and getting 120 hertz with DSC on, which is like visually lossless. You can't see that there's any difference. Obviously, big screen. They're lowering the actual display resolution and 1920 by 1920 to get 90 hertz. And then if you want the full 2560 by 2560, then you're going to go down to 75 hertz. And so you're comparing a 75 hertz headset to a 120 hertz headset, and then maybe later on with dynamic foveated transport, it might still render the same resolution and just use less bandwidth, and you get 160 hertz. Not sure about that. I wouldn't even talk about that. 160 hertz wasn't supposed to be on the chart, but it somehow ended up there. Anyway, availability, shipping now. Yep, if you want to be a beta tester. Shipping later this year, essentially. That's fine, whatever. Global availability, yep, basically anyone in the world can get Pimax headsets, where you've got select regions for the Beyond. Obviously, they're going to open up the regions as time goes on, kind of thing, but not everyone can essentially get a Beyond just because they don't offer it. So that's the entire list here. I wouldn't say it's that controversial, most of the stuff in here. It just looks like typical marketing for a company, comparing them. These are completely different products. This sacrifices everything for small, lightweight, and comfortable. This sacrifices comfort and form factor for all the features, as listed in the spec sheet. So it sucks that the Crystal couldn't be as small as something like the Valve Index or the Somnium headset that's coming out later. But that was just for support with all the additional modules and features that they want to release for the entire generation. Yeah, so that's everything. If you have any argument to what I've said, go ahead. I don't feel that this is that bad. I've gone through everything. Looks completely fine. I don't see what's controversial about any of this. Yeah.